She knelt on frozen pavement in her red Christmas dress while her husband threw her suitcase into the gutter and the crowd just stared. That's when she felt it. The weight of eyes that weren't human. Eyes that saw not a woman to pity, but a queen waiting to rise. Vivienne's knees touched the cold December concrete outside Castellano's restaurant, the city's most expensive dining spot, where fairy lights mocked her with their cheerful glow. Her husband Derek stood above her, his face twisted with a disgust she'd seen growing for months but had refused to name. "You're embarrassing me, Vivienne. You've always embarrassed me." Her green dress, the one she'd bought specifically for tonight, for their 5th anniversary dinner, was now soaked at the hem from the slush. Around them, couples paused mid-step. Phone cameras rose like accusatory fingers. "Derek, please. Not here. Not tonight." He threw her small suitcase onto the sidewalk. It burst open, scattering her clothes across the dirty snow. Intimate things. A bra landed near a stranger's shoe. "I want you gone. Melissa's moving in tomorrow. She actually knows how to make a man happy." The name landed like a slap. Melissa. Her cousin. Across the street, hidden in the shadow of the old cathedral's stone archway, Lucian watched with the stillness only centuries could teach. He'd walked this city for 300 years, ruled its hidden vampire population with absolute authority, and rarely involved himself in human suffering. It was too common. Too fleeting. But something about the woman in the green dress held him frozen. "My king, we should return. The council awaits your verdict on the territory dispute." His second-in-command, Victor, stood beside him, impatient. Lucian raised one hand for silence, his dark eyes fixed on the scene unfolding across the street. The woman, this Vivienne, was rising now. Slowly. Her mascara ran in black rivers, but her spine was straightening, vertebra by vertebra. She wasn't broken yet. Cracking, yes. But not shattered. That interested him. Derek grabbed her arm, his fingers cruel. She winced but didn't cry out. 5 years I wasted on you. 5 years with a woman who can't even give me a child. Who can't cook worth a damn. Who reads books instead of taking care of her appearance. Vivienne's voice came out steady, and Lucian leaned forward despite himself. "I had 3 miscarriages, Derek. 3. And you never came to the hospital for any of them." The crowd's energy shifted. Some phones lowered. Derek felt it and his eyes flashed with rage. "That's because I was with a real woman. Merry Christmas, Vivienne. Don't contact me. My lawyer will send the papers." He walked back into the golden warmth of the restaurant where Lucian could see a blonde woman waiting in the window booth, smiling. Vivienne stood alone in a circle of her own scattered belongings, breath-forming white clouds, the city's Christmas music spilling from speakers mounted on lamp posts. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. She started to gather her things with shaking hands, stuffing them back into the broken suitcase. No one helped. They watched, they recorded, but no one moved. Lucian stepped from the shadows. Victor grabbed his arm. "My king, you cannot. She's human. The laws." Lucian pulled free, his movement liquid and final. "I am the law, Victor." He crossed the street with inhuman grace, and though no car came close to hitting him, they all seemed to swerve just slightly, as if the universe itself made room for his passage. Vivienne was kneeling again, trying to close the suitcase's broken latch, when a shadow fell over her. She looked up into the face of the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. Dark hair. Pale skin. Eyes like winter midnight. He wore a black coat that probably cost more than her car. "You need somewhere to go." It wasn't a question. His voice was accented, old world, and impossibly warm for someone whose eyes were so cold. "I'm fine." The lie was pitiful. They both knew it. He crouched down, eye level with her now, and began picking up her things. A scarf. A book, its pages wet. He handled them with strange reverence. No one should be alone on Christmas Eve. Especially not someone who's just lost everything. Something in his tone made her throat tighten. "I don't know you." He smiled, and she saw a flash of something in that smile. Something dangerous. "My name is Lucian. And I'm offering you a choice, Vivienne. You can sit here in the cold and let them film your breaking. Or you can come with me, and let me show you what rising looks like." "How do you know my name?" He gestured slightly toward the restaurant. "Your husband shouted it 4 times. She looked at her broken suitcase, her ruined dress, the phone still recording. Somewhere, this was already being uploaded. Shared. Laughed at. She looked back at the stranger with the impossible eyes. "What do you want from me?" Lucian stood, offering his hand. "To give you what someone should have given you long ago. A place where you matter." Vivienne hesitated for only a moment. Then she placed her trembling hand in his. His skin was cold as marble. And the moment their palms touched, she felt it. A current. A recognition. Like her soul had been waiting for this exact moment, this exact hand. Lucian pulled her to her feet effortlessly, and Victor appeared from nowhere, gathering her suitcase without a word. "Where are we going?" Vivienne whispered. Lucian looked down at her, and for the first time in 100 years, he felt something shift in his chest. Something almost like a heartbeat. Home. Before we go further into Vivienne's story, I have to know. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? Are you listening to this on a cold winter night like Vivienne's, or somewhere warm and far away? Drop your city or country in the comments. I absolutely love knowing where you all are enjoying these stories from. You're not just viewers, you're part of this family now. The car was unlike anything Vivienne had ever seen. Black, sleek, with windows tinted so dark they looked like portals to nothing. Victor held the door open and she slid into leather seats that smelled of cedar and something else. Something ancient. Lucian entered from the other side, and suddenly the spacious interior felt intimate. They drove in silence through the decorated streets. Families passed by shop windows. Couples kissed under mistletoe hanging from cafe doorways. Everything Vivienne had thought she had this morning was now ash. "You're not afraid." Lucian's observation broke the quiet. Vivienne turned to him, studying his profile in the passing Christmas lights. Red. Green. Gold. They painted his pale skin in colors that shouldn't work but somehow did. Should I be? Most people feel it. The difference in me. They cross the street. Avoid my eyes. Vivienne looked at her hands, still shaking slightly. I just watched my husband choose my cousin over me in front of 50 strangers on Christmas Eve. I'm too tired to be afraid of anything else tonight. Good. Fear would complicate what I'm about to offer you. The car turned down a street Vivienne didn't recognize, though she'd lived in the city her whole life. The buildings here were older, made of stone that predated the modern skyline. They stopped in front of iron gates that opened without anyone touching them. Beyond was an estate that didn't belong in the 21st century. Gothic. Grand. Beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. What is this place? My home. And if you choose, yours as well. Victor opened the door and Vivienne stepped out onto gravel that crunched under her heels. The mansion rose before her, its windows glowing with warm light that contradicted the cold stone exterior. Lucian came to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from him like winter itself lived in his skin. "Vivienne, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. You can refuse. You can ask Victor to drive you anywhere in the city, to a hotel, to a friend, anywhere you wish. But if you walk through those doors with me, your life will never be what it was." "What are you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Lucian smiled, and this time she saw them clearly. Fangs. Just the slightest points, but unmistakable. Her breath caught. Not from fear. From recognition. Like part of her had always known monsters were real, had maybe even been waiting for one. "I'm a king of a world that exists beneath the one you know. A world of blood and immortality and power that humans think are legends. And you, Vivienne, are standing at a crossroads." He turned to face her fully, his dark eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her feel pinned and freed all at once. "I can give you shelter for the night and send you on your way tomorrow with enough money to start over. Or I can offer you something else. Something permanent." "What?" "A throne. A crown. Immortality. Revenge on everyone who ever made you feel small. And a family that will never abandon you the way he did." Vivienne's heart hammered. This was insane. Impossible. He was saying he was a vampire. That vampires were real. That he wanted to make her one. "Why me? You don't know me." Lucian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. He touched her face, his cold fingers against her tear-stained cheek, and she leaned into that touch like a flower toward deadly nightshade. "I've lived for 3 centuries, Vivienne. I've seen a million people break. But I've never seen someone gather their scattered clothes with dignity while the world mocked them. I've never seen someone stand back up when they had every right to stay down." His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "I saw a queen kneeling on that pavement tonight. And I decided it was time she had a kingdom." Inside, the mansion was a contradiction. Ancient tapestries hung beside modern art. Chandeliers dripped crystal light onto marble floors inlaid with patterns that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. Vivienne followed Lucian through hallways that whispered with footsteps that weren't theirs. Other vampires, she realized. Watching from doorways and shadows. Their eyes tracked her like predators observing wounded prey. "Your Majesty." A woman stepped from a side room. Tall. Elegant. Her beauty was sharp enough to cut. She looked at Vivienne with undisguised contempt. "Celeste. Have the East Wing prepared? For a human, my king? Surely you're not serious." Lucian didn't raise his voice, but the temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. "I don't recall asking for your opinion. Only your obedience." Celeste's jaw tightened, but she bowed her head and disappeared. Vivienne hugged herself, suddenly aware of how out of place she was. Her dress was still damp. Her hair a mess. Her life a ruin. Maybe this was a mistake. She stopped walking. Lucian turned back to her, patient. "I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere right now. I should just go to my mother's house. Or a shelter. Or literally anywhere that makes sense. And tomorrow? When you wake up and see the videos? When Derek's lawyer calls? When your cousin sends you a photo of herself in your bed?" Vivienne flinched. Each word was accurate and cruel. "You think small because they taught you to think small," Lucian continued, walking back to her. His voice was softer now. "You think you're the broken one because he told you that you were. But Vivienne, broken things can be reforged into weapons. I don't want to be a weapon. Then be a queen. Be the thing that makes him realize what he lost. Be immortal. Be powerful. Be mine. The last word hung between them like a held breath. Yours? My queen. My partner. The one who stands beside me when I rule. The one this world bows to. Vivienne shook her head, backing away. This is crazy. You're talking about turning me into a vampire. About making me something that drinks blood and kills people, and I can't. I can't be that. We don't kill indiscriminately, Lucian said. We have laws. Honor. We take only what we need from those who consent or those who deserve it. And you want me to just believe that? Trust you? I don't know you. No. But you felt it, didn't you? When I took your hand? Yes. God help her, yes. She'd felt something impossible. A connection that had no rational explanation. I need time. Lucian inclined his head. Then take it. Stay tonight. Rest. Eat. Tomorrow we'll talk again. No pressure. No expectations. He gestured down the hallway. Victor will show you to your room. There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit. Food will be brought to you. Sleep, Vivienne. You're safe here. She wanted to argue more, to run, to do anything rational. Instead, she followed Victor's silent form up a grand staircase, her mind spinning with words that couldn't possibly be real. Vampire. Queen. Mine. Behind her, Celeste emerged from the shadows to stand beside Lucian. You're making a mistake, my king. She's weak. Human. Broken. Lucian watched Vivienne disappear up the stairs, something stirring in him that he thought long dead. She's perfect. The room was larger than Vivienne's entire apartment had been. A four-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silk the color of midnight. Windows overlooked gardens that glittered with frost under moonlight. A fire crackled in a fireplace carved with symbols she didn't recognize. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt strangely calm. A soft knock came at the door. Come in. A young woman entered, carrying a tray. She was human, Vivienne realized immediately. Warm. Alive. Mortal like her. I'm Diana. I help manage the household. I brought you some food and tea. You're human. Diana smiled, setting the tray on a small table. I am. There are a few of us who work here. Lucian treats us well. Pays us well. Protects us. From what? From the vampires who don't have his morals. There are others in the city. Not all of them are as controlled as the king and his court. Vivienne sat on the edge of the bed. So it's all real. All of it. Diana poured tea into a delicate cup. Every fairy tale has roots in truth. I was homeless 2 years ago. Attacked by a rogue vampire in an alley. Lucian saved me, killed the rogue, and offered me a job. I've been here ever since. And he's never hurt you? Never. He's strict. Terrifying when he's angry. But he's the most honorable man, vampire or human, I've ever met. Vivienne accepted the tea, letting its warmth seep into her frozen fingers. Why does he want me? Diana's expression softened. I wondered the same thing when he brought you in. But then I saw the way he looked at you. How? Like someone who's been in the dark for a very long time and just saw sunrise. Before Vivienne could respond, the door opened without a knock. Lucian stood in the doorway, and Diana immediately bowed and left, closing the door behind her. "I wanted to check on you. You don't knock?" A slight smile. "It's my house." Vivienne stood, suddenly aware that she was still in her damp dress, that her makeup was smeared, that she was a mess. Lucian moved into the room with that unnatural grace, stopping near the fireplace. "Ask me your questions. I can hear your heartbeat from here. You're afraid but curious. The curiosity is winning. Are you going to kill me? No. Drink my blood? Not without your permission. Turn me into a monster?" He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw something ancient and sad in his eyes. "I'm going to turn you into the thing you were always meant to be. The woman your husband tried to bury. The queen who's been sleeping inside you, waiting. You keep saying queen. What does that even mean?" Lucian moved to the window, gazing out at his estate. "I've ruled alone for 150 years. Before that, I had a queen. She was fierce, brilliant, and she was murdered by vampire hunters who wanted to destroy our kind. Since then, I've needed no one, wanted no one. What changed? You. Standing in that street, gathering your dignity with the same hands that gathered your clothes. Not begging, not pleading, just surviving with a grace that most people never learn." He turned back to her. "I don't need a wife, Vivienne. I need an equal. Someone strong enough to stand in the darkness with me. And when I saw you tonight, I saw someone who's already been through hell and came out still human. Still kind. Imagine what you'd be with power behind that strength." Vivienne felt tears coming again. "I'm not strong. I'm broken. He broke me." "No." Lucian crossed to her in 2 swift steps, his cold hand tilting her chin up. "He cracked you. There's a difference. And it's through the cracks that the light gets in." They stood too close. Vivienne could feel the cold emanating from him, could see the way his eyes tracked the pulse in her throat. But there was no hunger there. Only something that looked almost like longing. "Why were you out there tonight? Why were you watching?" Lucian's hand dropped from her face. He moved back to the window, creating distance between them. "I walk the city on Christmas Eve. Every year. It's a tradition born from penance." "For what?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his voice came, low and heavy with memory. 300 years ago, I was human. A lord in Eastern Europe with lands and titles and a beautiful wife named Katerina. We had everything. Wealth. Power. Love. And on Christmas Eve, I made a choice that destroyed it all." "What choice?" "A vampire came to our estate seeking shelter from hunters. He was starving. Wounded. I turned him away because I was hosting a Christmas feast and didn't want the scandal. That night, he returned with others. They slaughtered everyone in my household. My servants. My guards. My wife." Vivienne's hand went to her mouth. "Lucian. They left me alive. Turned me. Made me watch Katerina die and then forced immortality on me as punishment for my lack of mercy. So yes, every Christmas Eve, I walk the streets looking for someone who needs shelter. Someone cast out. Someone alone. Trying to balance the scales for my ancient sin." His reflection in the dark window looked haunted. "And tonight you found me. Tonight I found you. A woman abandoned on the night of mercy by a man who didn't deserve her." Vivienne moved closer to him. Her reflection joined his in the glass. Mortal warmth beside immortal cold. I'm sorry. For what happened to you. For Katerina. Lucian's jaw tightened. Don't pity me. I've had 3 centuries to make peace with my demons. I'm not pitying you. I'm understanding you. He turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his expression made him look almost human. Tell me about your demons, Vivienne. Tell me what made you stay with a man who would discard you like garbage. She looked away, shame burning in her chest. Because I thought I deserved it. Why? Because everyone I've ever loved has left. My father walked out when I was 6. My mother blamed me for it, said I cried too much, needed too much. I spent my whole life trying to be less. Need less. Want less. Be smaller so people wouldn't leave. Her voice cracked. And Derek, he seemed so stable at first. So sure of himself. I thought if I could just be good enough, quiet enough, perfect enough, he'd stay. But it was never about me being enough. I was with a man who enjoyed making me feel small. Lucian listened with an intensity that made her feel heard in a way she'd never experienced. After the first miscarriage, he told me it was probably for the best. That I wouldn't be a good mother anyway. After the second, he stopped coming to bed. After the third, he stopped pretending to care at all. Vivienne wrapped her arms around herself. And tonight, throwing me out in public, that wasn't cruelty. That was strategy. He wanted to humiliate me so completely that I'd never fight the divorce. Never ask for anything. Just disappear quietly like I've been disappearing my whole life. You're not going to disappear. Lucian's voice was hard as stone. Not anymore. Not if you choose this. Choose me. Choose the power to make sure no one ever makes you feel insignificant again. And what do you get out of it? Why do you really want me, Lucian? You're ancient and powerful and beautiful. You could have anyone. He stepped closer, his hand reaching up to touch her face again, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with a tenderness that contradicted his cold skin. Because for 300 years, I've been alone in rooms full of vampires. Alone with power and immortality and nothing that matters. And then I saw you, gathering your broken things with shaking hands, and I felt something I thought died with Katerina. What? Hope. That maybe I could have a partner again. An equal. Someone who understands loss and survival and the cost of both. His other hand came up to frame her face. You asked what I get out of this. I get you, Vivienne. Your strength. Your resilience. Your humanity, even after I turn you. Because you'll never lose that core of kindness. It's too deep in you. And I need that. My world is dark and brutal and political. I need someone who remembers what it's like to hurt. Who won't become cruel with power. Vivienne's eyes filled with tears. What if I'm not who you think I am? Then we'll discover who you actually are together. The fireplace crackled. Outside, snow began to fall, visible through the great windows. Christmas Day was arriving in silence and cold. I'm scared. Good. Only fools aren't scared of transformation. But Vivienne, fear and courage aren't opposites. Courage is being terrified and doing it anyway. Will it hurt? The turning? Yes. But I'll be with you through every moment. You won't be alone. Not ever again. She looked up at him, this impossible creature offering her an impossible choice. Part of her screamed to run. But a deeper part, the part that had knelt on that cold pavement and chosen to stand back up, that part whispered something different. It whispered yes. I need to know more first. About what I'd become. What I'd have to do. Lucian smiled, and it transformed his severe face into something almost boyish. Ask. I'll tell you everything. He led her to the chairs by the fire. They sat across from each other, the warmth dancing between them. For the next hour, he explained everything. The politics of the vampire world. The covens in different cities. The laws that kept them hidden. The feeding, which he described with clinical honesty. We don't need to kill. We can take small amounts from willing donors. Diana and the others here, they provide for us sometimes. We pay them well for it. And there are blood banks, criminals, the dregs of society who prey on the innocent. And the sunlight? A myth, mostly. Old vampires like me can tolerate it for short periods. Younger ones need to be careful, but it's not instant death. Just uncomfortable. Weakening. Garlic? Crosses? He laughed, and the sound filled the room like music. Garlic is delicious. Crosses are architecture. The myths grew from small truths and human fear. What about reflection? You were in the window earlier. Another myth. We exist. Therefore we reflect. Vivienne found herself smiling despite everything. You're not what I expected a vampire king to be like. What did you expect? Someone darker. More threatening. You're actually kind of normal when you laugh. I've had 300 years to master appearing civilized. But make no mistake, Vivienne. I am dangerous. I've killed to protect my people. I've made hard choices that haunt me. I'm not a good man. But you're not a bad one either. No. I'm something in between. Trying to tip the scales toward light. Vivienne pulled her feet up under her in the chair, feeling more comfortable than she had in months. Maybe years. Tell me something true. Something you've never told anyone. Lucian studied her, his dark eyes reflecting firelight. I'm lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. I have subjects and servants and people who fear or respect me. But I haven't had someone who sees me, truly sees me, in over a century. Until tonight. His honesty cracked something open in her chest. I'm lonely too. I was lonely even when I was married. Especially when I was married. Then let's be lonely together. And maybe, eventually, we won't be lonely at all. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Victor's voice came through. My king, the council is demanding an audience. They've heard about the human. Lucian's expression darkened. Tell them I'll address them in the morning. They're insistent, my lord. Celeste has been speaking against your decision. There's unrest. Vivienne stood. You should go. I'll be fine. Lucian rose as well, frustration clear on his face. This is politics. Tedious and necessary. Will you be here when I return? Where else would I go? He moved to her, taking both her hands in his cold ones. I meant what I said. You can leave any time. But I very much hope you'll stay. I'll be here. Something passed between them. An understanding. A possibility. Lucian lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, the gesture old-fashioned and intimate. Rest, Vivienne. Tomorrow, if you're willing, I'll show you what your life could become. He left, Victor closing the door behind them. Vivienne stood alone in the beautiful room, her mind spinning. She moved to the wardrobe and found it full of clothes in her exact size. Dresses, casual wear, even pajamas. All expensive. All perfect. She changed into soft sleep clothes and climbed into the massive bed. The sheets smelled like lavender and something else. Something that might have been Lucian's scent, though she couldn't explain how she knew that. Outside her window, she could see the city lights in the distance. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably in bed with Melissa. Her old life was continuing without her like she'd never existed at all. But here, in this impossible place, a vampire king had called her queen. She should have been terrified. Instead, for the first time in 5 years, she felt something that might have been happiness beginning to take root. I want to pause here for just a moment because Vivienne is standing at a crossroads we've all faced in different ways. That moment when you have to choose between the safe, small life you know and the terrifying, beautiful unknown. Have you ever had a moment like that? A chance to become someone completely different? Tell me in the comments what you would do in Vivienne's position. Would you take Lucian's offer? And if you're loving this story, hit that subscribe button and join our family. We're building the fastest growing vampire love stories community on YouTube, and trust me, we have so many incredible tales planned for you. You're special, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Vivienne woke to shouting. The sun was barely up, pale winter light filtering through the windows. She pulled on a robe from the wardrobe and opened her door to chaos. Vampires filled the hallway below. Dozens of them, their pale faces turned upward toward the second floor landing where Lucian stood, still dressed in last night's clothes. He looked furious. You overstep, Celeste. The elegant vampire woman stood at the base of the stairs, her voice carrying clearly. I speak for the council, my king. You cannot simply elevate a human to queen without our consent. It violates every protocol we have. I don't need your consent. I am the king. A king who is acting like a lovesick fool. The words echoed through the hall. Vivienne froze in her doorway, unseen. Another vampire stepped forward, older, with silver hair. Lucian, we respect your authority. But this is madness. You know nothing about this woman. She could be a plant from the hunters. A spy. At minimum, she's a weak human who will make us look foolish. Thomas, I've made my decision. Then unmake it. Celeste's voice was sharp. Or we'll be forced to question whether you're fit to rule. Whether your judgment has been compromised by sentiment. Lucian descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. Are you challenging me, Celeste? I'm trying to save you from a catastrophic mistake. This human, she's nothing. A discarded wife running from her failures. You think she can stand beside you? Rule beside you? She'll crumble the first time she faces real opposition. Vivienne's chest tightened. Each word was a blade. She doesn't even know our world, Celeste continued. She's been here one night and you're ready to turn her, crown her, give her power she hasn't earned. It's an insult to every vampire who's served you loyally for decades. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled vampires. Victor stepped forward. My king, perhaps a trial period. Let her prove herself before the turning. It would satisfy the council's concerns. No. Lucian's voice was firm. I won't make her perform like a trained dog for approval. Then you choose her over us? Over your people? I choose what's right for this coven. And I say she stays. Celeste's laugh was cruel. Right for the coven? Or right for your bed? We all know what this really is, Lucian. You're lonely. You're still mourning Katerina after all these years. And this human, she's just a replacement. a poor copy of what you lost. Don't speak of things you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You saw a broken thing and thought you could fix it. Play the hero. But she'll never be Katerina. She'll never be worthy of what you're offering. That's when Vivienne appeared at the top of the stairs. Every face turned toward her. The silence was immediate and absolute. She descended in her borrowed robe and bare feet, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking nothing like a queen and everything like what she was. A woman who'd lost everything less than 24 hours ago. She stopped beside Lucian, her heart hammering so hard she was sure every vampire could hear it. You were right. Her voice was steady despite the fear. I'm not worthy. I'm not special. I'm just someone who got thrown away like trash and happened to be rescued by a man who's kinder than he needs to be. Vivienne. Lucian's voice held a warning, but she continued. I don't know your world. I don't know your politics. I spent 5 years making myself smaller for a man who hated me anyway. And now I'm standing in a mansion full of immortal creatures who are absolutely correct that I don't belong here. She turned to Lucian, and the pain in her eyes was raw. I'm not Katerina. I'll never be her. I'm just Vivienne. Broken, discarded Vivienne who can't even keep a human man interested. What made me think I could be a vampire queen? You're twisting my words. No, I'm facing reality. This was a beautiful fantasy for one night. But Celeste is right. You don't know me. You just saw someone you could save and it made you feel better about the people you couldn't save 300 years ago. The words came out harsher than she intended, fueled by fear and the old familiar feeling of not being enough. That's not true. Isn't it? You said yourself you walked the streets on Christmas Eve looking for someone to save. I was just convenient. The right tragedy at the right time. Lucian's expression shuddered, going cold. You think I'm that shallow? That my offer was pity? I think you're a good man trying to fix an old wound. And I think I'm too broken to be anyone's bandage. The assembled vampires watched like spectators at execution. Celeste smiled. Lucian's voice dropped to a whisper only Vivienne could hear. After everything I told you, after what we shared last night, you believe I'm just using you to ease my conscience? I believe you want to help me. But want and love aren't the same thing. And I can't be someone's charity case. Not again. I did that with Derek. Let him make me feel like I should be grateful he stayed. I won't do it again, even with someone as wonderful as you. Tears streamed down her face. I need to leave. Vivienne. He reached for her but she stepped back, and that small movement felt like a chasm opening between them. Thank you for last night. For making me feel valued, even if it was temporary. But I can't stay somewhere I have to prove I deserve to exist. She looked at the crowd of vampires, their beautiful immortal faces watching her break down with detachment or satisfaction. I hope you find your queen, Lucian. Someone worthy of standing beside you. But it's not me. It was never me. She turned and walked back up the stairs with as much dignity as she could gather, just like she'd gathered her clothes from that frozen street. Behind her, she heard Celeste's satisfied voice. Probably for the best, my king. Humans are so fragile. Emotionally and otherwise. Vivienne reached her room and closed the door, sliding down it to sit on the floor. Her whole body shook with sobs she tried to keep quiet. In the hallway below, Lucian stood frozen, watching the space where she'd been. Victor touched his arm. My king, perhaps this is indeed for the best. The council. Get out. The words were barely human. More growl than speech. All of you. Get out of my sight before I forget I'm supposed to be civilized." The vampires scattered. Only Victor remained, and even he kept his distance. Lucian's hands clenched into fists, his careful control fracturing. He'd found something precious and let his world destroy it in less than a day. Vivienne packed the few things she'd arrived with, her movements mechanical. The beautiful clothes in the wardrobe stayed untouched. They weren't hers. None of this was hers. A soft knock came at the door. She expected Victor to tell her a car was ready. Instead, Diana entered, her human warmth a stark contrast to the cold immortals below. "You're leaving. It's not a good fit." Diana sat on the bed, watching Vivienne fold her ruined dress. "That's crap and you know it." "Excuse me? I've worked here for 2 years. I've seen Lucian interact with hundreds of vampires. Political allies. Beautiful immortal women literally throwing themselves at him. He's never looked at any of them the way he looked at you last night. He looks at me like a project. Something to fix. He looks at you like you're the answer to a question he's been asking for a century." Vivienne's hands stilled. "You heard what I said down there. About being a bandage for his old wounds. I heard a scared woman saying cruel things because she's been conditioned to believe she doesn't deserve good things." Diana's voice was gentle but firm. "Vivienne, I know what it's like. Before here, I was with a man who told me I was worthless every single day. Who made me believe I was lucky he tolerated me. When Lucian saved me and offered me a job, you know what I did? I said no. 3 times I said no because I couldn't believe someone would help me without wanting something awful in return. What changed? He waited. Patiently. He kept the offer open and let me come to him when I was ready. Because that's who he is. He doesn't force. He doesn't manipulate. He offers and then respects your choice." Vivienne sat beside her, exhausted. "The council hates me. That woman Celeste, she's right. I don't know their world. I'd be a liability. Celeste has been in love with Lucian for 50 years. He's never looked at her twice. You've been here 12 hours and he's ready to give you a crown. Of course she hates you. This is too much. Too fast. Yesterday I was married. Today I'm supposed to become a vampire queen? It's insane. Is it? Or is it just the first time in your life something good is happening at the same speed as all the bad things that have happened to you?" The question hit Vivienne like cold water. Diana continued. "You spent 5 years in a slow decline with Derek. Slow cruelty. Slow diminishment. Slow death of who you were. You're used to that pace. But Vivienne, good things are allowed to happen quickly too. Love is allowed to be fast and overwhelming and scary. This isn't love. We just met. Are you sure? Because from where I'm sitting, the way you two looked at each other last night, that was something. Maybe not fully formed love yet, but the beginning of it. The potential." Vivienne put her face in her hands. "I'm so tired of being afraid." "Then stop. Choose brave instead. Go down there and tell him you're sorry. Tell him you're scared but you want to try. Give yourself the chance to be chosen by someone who actually sees you. What if I fail? What if I can't be what he needs? What if you're exactly what he needs and you walk away before you find out?" Downstairs, Lucian stood in his study, staring at a portrait on the wall. Katerina smiled eternally from the canvas, forever young, forever dead. Victor entered without knocking. "The council is satisfied. They see it as you coming to your senses." "I didn't come to my senses. I lost them. He turned from the portrait. She was right, Victor. About all of it. I saw someone I could save and I moved too fast. Offered too much. I overwhelmed her. You offered her a choice. A choice no sane person would make. Become a vampire? Rule a world you don't understand? Trust a man you met hours ago? What was I thinking? You were thinking you'd found something worth keeping. And you were right. Victor moved closer. My king, in 300 years I've served you. I've never seen you react to anyone the way you reacted to that woman. Not even Katerina made you look that alive. Lucian's jaw tightened. Don't. It's true. Katerina was a good match. A political alliance that became affection. But Vivienne? She woke something in you I thought was dead. It doesn't matter. She's leaving. I'll have someone drive her wherever she wants to go. Give her money for a fresh start. It's the least I can do. Or you could fight for her. She doesn't want to be fought for. She wants to be free. Does she? Or does she want to know she's worth fighting for? Victor's words hung in the air. She spent her entire life being abandoned, Victor continued. Her father. Her mother emotionally. Her husband publicly. And now you, the first person to offer her value, you're just going to let her walk away because it got hard? I'm respecting her choice. You're hiding behind her fear and yours. You're both terrified of being hurt, so you're hurting each other first. It's cowardice, my king. And you've never been a coward. Lucian was silent for a long moment. Then what would you have me do? Go to her. Not as a king. As a man who's falling in love and doesn't want to lose it. Be vulnerable. Be honest. Let her see that you're just as scared as she is. And if she still chooses to leave, then you let her go knowing you tried. But Lucian, don't let pride or protocol rob you of something real. You've been alone long enough. Vivienne stood at the top of the stairs, her small suitcase in hand. She'd made her decision. She would leave. Go to a hotel. Start over. Again. But her feet wouldn't move. Below, she could hear voices. Lucian and Victor. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was heated. Then footsteps. Coming up the stairs. Lucian appeared, and he looked different. Unguarded. The kingly mask was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. They stared at each other across the hallway. I was coming to find you, he said quietly. I was leaving. I know. Victor told me to let you go. To respect your choice. He moved closer, stopping a few feet away. But I realized something. I've spent 300 years being respectful. Being patient. Being alone. And for the first time since I lost everything, I found someone who makes me want to be reckless. Lucian. Let me finish. Please. She nodded, her throat tight. You said I saw you as a charity case. Someone to fix my guilt. And maybe there was a shadow of that in the very beginning, in that first moment. But Vivienne, the moment you took my hand, everything changed. He stepped closer. I felt your strength. Your resilience. The core of steel underneath all that pain. And when we talked last night, when you opened up to me, I didn't see someone broken. I saw someone who survived things that would have destroyed weaker people. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you gathered your dignity off a frozen street while strangers mocked you. I know you asked me hard questions instead of just accepting easy comfort. I know you walked away just now when you thought you were protecting both of us, even though it hurt. His voice dropped. I know that in one night, you made me feel less lonely than I've felt in 100 years. And I know I'm terrified of losing that. Of losing you. Vivienne's eyes filled with tears. I'm terrified too. Of not being enough. Of disappointing you. Of becoming something I don't recognize. Then be terrified with me. Choose this anyway. Choose us anyway. He held out his hand, echoing that moment on the frozen street. I can't promise it will be easy. My world is complicated and dangerous. The council will fight this. There will be challenges. But Vivienne, I can promise you'll never face them alone. I can promise you'll never have to make yourself smaller. I can promise that every single day, I will choose you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. What if I can't do this? What if I fail at being queen? Then we'll figure it out together. There's no rule book, Vivienne. We write our own story. She looked at his outstretched hand. Cold. Steady. Offering everything. I'm still scared. Good. So am I. But I'm more scared of wondering what we could have been. Vivienne dropped her suitcase. It hit the floor with a soft thud. She placed her hand in his, and just like the first time, she felt it. That current. That recognition. That sense of coming home to a place she'd never been. Lucian pulled her close, his cold arms wrapping around her, and she melted into him. He was ice and she was fire, and somehow they fit perfectly. I'm sorry, she whispered against his chest. For what I said. I was scared and I lashed out. I know. I'm sorry too. For moving too fast. For not considering how overwhelming this must be. She pulled back to look at him. I don't want you to slow down. I want you to help me catch up. His smile was like sunrise. Then let's begin. Over the next 3 days, Lucian showed Vivienne everything. He introduced her to the vampires who weren't hostile, the ones who were curious or cautiously optimistic. He taught her about their history, their laws, their culture. He let her watch him rule, make decisions, settle disputes. She saw his wisdom, his fairness, his occasional ruthlessness when protecting his people. And she fell in love. Not with the idea of him. Not with what he could give her. But with who he was. The man who'd lived 3 centuries and still chose kindness. Who had power but wielded it with restraint. Who was lonely and damaged and trying every day to be better than his worst moment. On the 4th night, Christmas had passed into memory and a new year was approaching. Vivienne found Lucian in his study. I'm ready. He looked up from the documents he'd been reviewing. Ready? To be turned. To become what you are. To stand beside you. Lucian stood slowly. Vivienne, you don't have to rush this. Take more time. I've had enough time. I've spent 30 years taking time, being careful, playing it safe. It got me nothing but pain. You offered me reckless. I want reckless. She moved to him, taking his face in her hands. I want forever with you. I want to be strong enough to face your world. I want to be your queen. Not because I'm running from my old life, but because I'm running toward my new one. The turning happened in Lucian's private chambers. He explained everything first. The pain. The 3 days of transformation. The possibility, however small, that it could go wrong. I'll be with you every moment, he promised. You won't be alone. I know. She lay on his bed, her heart racing. Lucian sat beside her, his hand stroking her hair. Last chance to change your mind. Not a chance. He smiled, then leaned down, his lips brushing her throat. I'm going to make this as painless as possible. But Vivienne, it will still hurt. I trust you. Those 3 words seemed to undo something in him. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with new resolve. Then let's make you immortal. His fangs pierced her throat and Vivienne gasped. It did hurt, sharp and burning, but underneath the pain was something else. Connection. His venom entering her bloodstream felt like liquid fire and ice, rewriting her from the inside out. When he'd taken enough to begin the change, he bit his own wrist and offered it to her. Drink. It will complete the transformation. She hesitated only a second before pressing her mouth to his wrist. His blood tasted like metal and wine and something indefinable. Power. Ancient power flooding into her. The world began to blur. Lucian's voice came from far away. Sleep now. I'll be here when you wake. Darkness took her. The transformation was agony. Vivienne burned and frozen died and was reborn over 3 endless days. But through it all, Lucian never left. He held her hand, whispered to her, brought her through the pain with his presence. When she finally opened her eyes, the world was different. Colors were sharper. Sounds clearer. She could hear heartbeats from the floor below. Diana's. The human guards. She could smell everything. Cedar. Stone. Blood. And she could feel Lucian beside her like a beacon. Their connection had deepened, become something primal and unbreakable. Welcome back. His voice was soft. Vivienne sat up slowly, marveling at the strength in her body. She felt powerful. Alive in a way she'd never experienced. How do you feel? Like myself. But more. She looked at her hands. Paler now. Stronger. Then up at Lucian. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For choosing me. For making me believe I was worth choosing. He pulled her close, kissing her softly. Always. The next week was a blur of adjustment. Learning to control her new strength. Her new senses. The hunger, which Lucian taught her to manage with patience and donated blood. And then came the coronation. Lucian insisted on doing it publicly. Not just before the Vampire Council, but in front of the entire supernatural community of the city. Vampires. Witches. The werewolf packs from the outskirts. Everyone who existed in the hidden world beneath the human one. The ceremony was held in the grand ballroom of the estate. Hundreds of immortal creatures gathered, their whispers echoing off marble walls. Celeste stood near the back, her expression icy. The council members watched with varying degrees of acceptance. Victor stood beside Lucian's throne, proud. Vivienne entered in a gown of deep crimson, her dark hair swept up, her new vampire beauty taking everyone's breath away. She walked down the aisle alone, her head high, and when she reached the dais, Lucian stood. He wore black, severe and elegant, every inch a king. In his hands was a crown of silver and rubies that had belonged to Katerina. Vivienne saw it and understood the significance. He was truly letting go of the past. Choosing the future. Choosing her. He spoke in a voice that carried through the hall. For a century and a half, I have ruled alone. I told myself I needed no one. That I was complete in my solitude. I was wrong. He looked at Vivienne with such open love that several vampires shifted uncomfortably. This woman came into my life broken by cruelty and abandonment. In 4 weeks, I have watched her transform not just physically, but emotionally. She has learned our ways with grace, challenged our traditions with wisdom, and reminded me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising every time you do. He held up the crown. Vivienne was human, mortal, fragile, and she survived what would have destroyed most immortals. Now she is vampire. Now she is powerful. And I ask you to recognize her as what she has always been. A queen. He placed the crown on her head, and the weight of it felt right. Perfect. Then he took her hand and turned her to face the assembled crowd. I present to you Vivienne, Queen of the North Territory. My partner. My equal. My chosen. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then Victor began to clap. Slowly, others joined. Not all of them. Celeste stood frozen, furious. But enough. Enough that it felt like acceptance. Vivienne looked out at the sea of faces, creatures of myth and power, and felt no fear. Only certainty. This was where she belonged. But the night wasn't over. As the formal ceremony ended and the gathering moved to celebration, a commotion arose at the entrance. Human voices, angry and confused. Security had stopped someone trying to enter. Multiple someones. Vivienne moved to the doorway with Lucian beside her. Her new vampire vision showed her exactly who it was before they came into view. Derek. And Melissa. They looked small and pathetic next to the supernatural security. Derek was shouting, red-faced. I know she's in there. Vivienne. I have a right to speak to my wife. Ex-wife, Melissa corrected with a nasty smile. The divorce went through yesterday. You're free, baby. Vivienne stepped into view, and Derek's words died in his throat. She looked nothing like the woman he'd thrown away. Pale. Beautiful. Powerful. Otherworldly. The crown on her head caught the light. Derek's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Melissa actually stepped back. Vivienne descended the steps slowly, savoring their fear. Derek. What a surprise. Vivienne? What happened to you? I found a better family. A better life. A better everything. Lucian appeared beside her, his hand resting possessively on her waist. Derek's eyes went wide. You're with him? What is this place? Vivienne smiled, and her new fangs showed just slightly. This is my home. My kingdom, actually. I'm queen here. Queen? Have you lost your mind? You need help. You need to come with me. The audacity made her laugh. You threw me out on Christmas Eve in front of strangers. You chose my cousin over me. You spent 5 years making me feel worthless. And now you think you can show up and I'll just come with you? I was wrong, okay? I made a mistake. Melissa, it's not working out. Behind him, Melissa made an outraged sound. Derek ignored her. Come home, Viv. We can fix this. I forgive you for whatever this is. The old Vivienne would have felt something. Pain. Anger. Longing. The new Vivienne felt only pity. There's nothing to fix, Derek. And I don't need your forgiveness. I needed it 5 years ago when you stopped loving me. I needed it through 3 miscarriages you couldn't be bothered to care about. I needed it every time you made me feel small." She stepped closer and he actually flinched. "But I don't need it anymore. I don't need you. I have a man who chose me when I had nothing, who saw strength in me when I couldn't see it myself, who made me a queen instead of making me feel like a burden." Lucian's arm tightened around her waist, pride evident in his expression. "So Derek, let me make this very clear. You don't have a right to speak to me. You don't have a right to know about my life. You threw away something precious and now you get to live with that choice." She turned to the security. "Escort them out. And make sure they understand that they're never welcome here again." As supernatural security, werewolves built like mountains, moved toward them, Derek found his voice. "This isn't over, Vivienne. You can't just disappear into some weird cult. It's very over. And Derek, Merry Christmas." The doors closed on his protests. Vivienne stood in silence for a moment, then turned into Lucian's embrace. He held her tightly. "How do you feel?" "Free." And she was. The last chain to her old life had just been severed. She was no longer Derek's discarded wife. No longer the woman too broken to be loved. She was Vivienne. Vampire. Queen. Chosen. The celebration continued into the early hours. Vivienne danced with Lucian, met vampires from other territories, began to understand the scope of the world she'd entered. As dawn approached, they stood on the balcony of their private chambers, watching the sky begin to lighten. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" Vivienne leaned into him, marveling that his cold no longer felt strange. "It felt like home. Not even a little. You gave me everything I didn't know I needed. You gave me the same." He turned her to face him, his hands framing her face. "I love you, Vivienne. I should have said it before now, but I was afraid. Afraid it was too soon. Afraid you didn't feel the same. I love you too. I think I started falling for you the moment you picked up my scattered clothes with such gentleness. We were both broken," he said softly. "Both lonely. Both lost. And now we're found." He kissed her as the sun rose over the city, and Vivienne thought about that woman on the frozen pavement 4 weeks ago. The one who thought her life was ending. She'd been right. That life had ended. And this one, this impossible, beautiful, eternal one, had begun. 3 months later, the story broke in the human world. Not the vampire part, Lucian's people were too careful for that. But the rest. Local woman goes from public humiliation to high society in months. The article featured photos of Vivienne at charity events, art galleries, always beside Lucian, who was described as a reclusive billionaire. Her transformation was called inspirational. A rags to riches story. Derek saw it. Of course he did. The entire city saw it. And while he struggled to make rent on his apartment after Melissa left him for someone wealthier, Vivienne ruled an empire he couldn't even imagine. She sometimes thought about that night. The cold. The humiliation. The moment she thought she'd lost everything. And she was grateful. Because sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you were always meant to have. Sometimes you have to be broken to be remade. Sometimes you have to fall into darkness to find your way to the light. And sometimes, the monster who saves you is the only one who ever saw you were human. So there it is. Vivienne's journey from broken to powerful, from discarded to chosen, from human to queen. Her husband threw her out on Christmas Eve thinking she was nothing, and she became everything. I want to know what you thought about this story. Did it hit you in the feelings? What was your favorite moment? And what would you have done in Vivienne's position? Tell me everything in the comments below. And listen, if you've made it this far, you're exactly the kind of person who belongs in our family. Hit that subscribe button right now and join the fastest growing vampire love stories community on YouTube. We have so many incredible stories planned, tales of love and darkness and redemption that will keep you coming back for more. You're special. You found us for a reason. Don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe now, and let's continue this journey together. Where are you watching from? I love knowing that our stories reach all corners of the world. Drop your location in the comments. Until next time, remember that you are worthy of being chosen. You are worthy of love. And your story isn't over. It's just beginning.